Welcome back to Vet Life Reimagined. A little bit different episode for you today. I attended the recent ACVIM Internal Medicine Forum in Seattle, and the opening keynote shared a fascinating phrase that I hadn't heard before, and I thought it might be interesting to talk about it here on the podcast. We talk about a lot of challenges facing veterinary medicine, and they're important to talk about, but we need to talk about them in an empowering way. So I hope by sharing some of what I learned at this forum, you will be inspired to continue to explore and come up with some ideas. You may have heard terms like access to care, and you've probably heard about the reduced clinic visits. These topics have come up in conversation on the podcast previously because they impact us as professionals. But this shortage of people who are engaging with veterinary care, the presenter called them the lost pet owners. And statistics show that it's not just about financial means. This phrase, the lost pet owner, really stood out to me. This session was presented by Dr. James Floyd. For those who may not know him, Dr. Floyd is both a veterinarian and an economist. I should really try to get him to come on the podcast. He worked in large animal medicine and then served as dean at the University of Florida College of Veterinary Medicine. And he has spent much of his career studying the veterinary workforce and economic issues. And today, he focuses on the intersection of veterinary medicine, business, and workforce development. So his session was titled The U.S. Veterinary Specialist Workforce, Key Historic Trends, Current Status, and Emerging Challenges. And while it began as a conversation about specialists due to the audience, it quickly became something much bigger. Because one of Dr. Floyd's first points was that when we talk about specialists in veterinary medicine, we also must talk about general practitioners. You really can't separate one from the other. We are all part of the same ecosystem. And the data he shared painted a fascinating picture of where our profession stands today. More than 85% of veterinarians in clinical practice work in companion animal medicine. Pet ownership continues to grow. Today, approximately 71% of U.S. households owns a pet. That translates to 95 million households. And perhaps most encouraging, 96% of pet owners report that their pets provide health benefits to them in some way. The human-animal bond remains incredibly strong. People continue to see their pets as important members of the family and important contributors to their personal well-being. That foundation is very healthy for our profession, as Dr. Lloyd points out. He also discussed demand for veterinary services. He described it as a combination of three things: the number of pets, the percent of pets receiving veterinary services, and the amount of money spent on those pets. At first glance, all of that sounds like a recipe for continued growth, and in many ways it has been. General practice has grown roughly 2.4%, while the specialist workforce has grown by approximately 7.5%. That specialist growth is encouraging because specialists have historically lagged behind demand. In fact, Dr. Lloyd shared that when he contacted 6 of the largest corporate specialty groups, he reported 186 open positions for veterinary internists alone, just veterinary internists. The demand remains quite substantial. You might have been feeling it in practice as you try to refer your patients. He also reviewed the training pipeline. Internship applications have increased while available internship positions have actually declined. Between 2021 and 2025, there was approximately a 70% increase in unmatched internship applicants. But residency positions have increased by about 23%, which is certainly positive. But there are still concerns about whether the pipeline can keep pace with future workforce needs. Academia faces its own challenges. In 2023, there were roughly 500 open and funded faculty positions across veterinary medicine. Who trains the next generation of veterinarians and specialists if we struggle to fill academic positions? If I may add my own comment, coming from the nutrition specialty, we also face a generation of leaders in nutrition that will be retiring soon. I have heard other people say the same thing across specialties and organizations. Many individuals have already retired, and these gaps have been mainly in academia, and it's hard to attract replacements. So, this succession gap is something that I've brought up inside of ACVIM and will continue to be pushing for more conversation. One of the questions raised during Dr. Lloyd's session was whether applications to vet school, which have only increased about 7%, will be enough to support future workforce demands. Some of the discussion even extended beyond veterinary school and into how we inspire future veterinarians long before they ever apply. Dr. Lloyd suggested even as early as preschool. But while all those workforce discussions were important, they weren't what stayed with me the most after the session. What stayed with me, despite strong pet ownership numbers, despite a strong human-animal bond, despite increasing sophistication in veterinary medicine, the number of veterinary visits are declining. At the same time, the cost of care is increasing. Now, rising costs are not automatically a negative story. Many of the products and services we offer today are objectively better than what was available a decade ago. The vaccine we use are more advanced, diagnostic capabilities have expanded dramatically, treatment options continue to improve. We are practicing a different level of medicine than that we were 10 years ago. There is also a trend economists refer to as premiumization. Many pet owners are choosing higher-end products and services and are willing to spend more on their pets than previous generations. But then Dr. Lloyd introduced a concept that I mentioned at the beginning, the lost pet owners. According to APPA data, the average annual cost of owning a dog is about $1,600 per year. Yet roughly half of pet owners spend less than $1,000 annually. At the same time, wealth inequity continues to widen across the country. The traditional explanations might be simple. People can't afford veterinary care, and certainly for some families, that is absolutely true. But Dr. Lloyd challenged us to think beyond that explanation, because the lost pet owners aren't necessarily just someone facing financial barriers. There appears to be pet owners who have the means to seek veterinary care but aren't doing so. Why? We don't fully know. Maybe they don't perceive the value. Maybe they had a poor experience. Maybe convenience has become a bigger factor than we appreciate. Maybe they're getting information elsewhere. Maybe veterinary medicine simply doesn't fit into their lives the way it once did. The reality is that we don't have all the answers yet, but I think it's one of the most important questions facing our profession right now. Because if pet ownership is increasing and the human-animal bond remains strong, then why are some pet owners disengaging from veterinary care? And perhaps even more importantly, how do we bring them back? Or maybe, how do we go meet them? That's where the conversation becomes especially interesting. Dr. Lloyd discussed innovative business models and challenged us to think differently about the future of veterinary healthcare. Not just new drugs, not just new diagnostics or new technology, but new ways of organizing care, new ways of utilizing the veterinary healthcare team, new ways of creating access, new ways of supporting pet owners who may currently sit outside of the traditional veterinary care model. The future of veterinary medicine isn't solely about producing more veterinarians or more specialists. Those things are important. But the bigger opportunity is understanding the pet owners we aren't currently reaching. the pet owners who love their animals, the pet owners who value the human-animal bond, the pet owner who, for whatever reason, has drifted away from veterinary care. Because every lost pet owner represents a pet that may not be receiving the care that they need. And for a profession built around supporting animals and the human-animal bond, that's worth paying attention to. So I want to open up this for continued conversation. What are you seeing wherever you are? Does the lost pet owner resonate with you? And what part of this intrigues you enough to start looking deeper or even start changing at least one thing that could better support those pets and people? Because if we can solve this challenge, if we can better understand why some pet owners disengage and create new ways to meet them where they are, we may strengthen not only the future of veterinary medicine, but also the human-animal bond that brought all of us into this profession in the first place. And just think about the possibilities for your own career with the opportunities to change the different types of models we currently are engaging in veterinary medicine. I also want to take this opportunity to thank you for listening to the podcast. I'd love to hear your thoughts. You can actually directly message us at the podcast. There's a link below. But stay curious, keep reimagining what's possible, and I can't wait to see you next time.